Good morning, everyone. I want to make videos a little more regularly in the coming period. So this is the first one in this series. I want to share some updates with you, some reflections, some ideas, some thoughts. And also in future videos, I want to open it up to more discussion and questions and collaboration. So if folks want to send me any topics that they want me to cover, any questions you have for me, I'll dive into those in the next video. The first thing I want to talk about today is something that flew under the radar for many of us folks who've been involved in fighting the Thacker Pass mine. And that is that in January, Lithium Nevada Corporation unveiled new public documents showing that they plan to double the size of their lithium mine at Thacker Pass. Rather than producing 80,000 tons of lithium per year, they plan to produce 160,000 per year. And these documents included a new set of maps showing the extent of the planned mine. For folks who are familiar with Thacker Pass, basically the entire southern exploration area, so the south side of the main road that runs through Thacker Pass, has all now been included in the open pit plan that Lithium Nevada plans to mine. They have basically doubled the size of their waste rock tailings stockpile, and they intend to put that in the northeast side of Thacker Pass, including the what they called at the time of the original EIS in 2021, they called this the North Exploration Area. So this would be basically due north and northwest of Sentinel Rock, an entirely new mountain of toxic waste rock they plan to construct there. They want to, in this new plan, they want to reroute the entire public highway, the 293 road, onto the south side of Thacker Pass, basically along the rim of those southern cliffs. I imagine this would be, kind of a hassle and a pain for all the local folks. I've heard that a lot of locals in Kings River especially are not happy about this one, about this new project expansion. These new phases would involve, probably a doubling as well in terms of the local impacts, things like the number of truck trips going through the community, the usage of chemicals, the burning of fuel, and so on. All these things are expected to double. And the fact that this plan is being released in 2025, just 4 years after the original EIS, after the lawsuits, after the public comment periods are over. This is all an example of what we see increasingly in mining and across the extractive industries, which is this sort of breadcrumb permitting, an approach where an initial permit is gotten for a smaller scale project, and then that project is expanded and often expanded again and again and again. And this is a very effective way that these corporations and the government agencies, which are captured and facilitating their corporate exploitation of the land and of our communities, are bypassing public input, are bypassing oversight by courts, are bypassing opposition in many cases entirely, because like at Thacker Pass now, the fight for Thacker Pass is mostly over. It's mostly done. But if it had been public at the time in 2021, during the height of this fight, that this mine was planned to be double the size that was known at the time, that would have inspired people to even more serious resistance and probably changed the calculus for a lot of local folks, especially, who are now looking at a doubled mine size and basically have no legal means of recourse whatsoever. So, cases like this are, of course, why so many people like myself and many others have for years and decades been talking about the necessity of not just working inside the legal system as it currently exists, but going beyond that in various ways, by disobeying the law, by pushing the boundaries of the law, by taking action that will be deemed as illegal inside the current system because we live inside a corporate legal structure that's set up to protect the rights of property above all else. So I want to share that update. And, for folks who are following the Thacker Pass story, we just did an update on our website of the timeline of the campaign that we have had on there since the beginning. This timeline page kind of tracks in pretty granular detail all the court cases, all the decisions, all the major events at Thacker Pass, the different protest camps and actions that have been in place out there. And, now with the campaign being where it's at, it's a historical document that's useful for telling the story of this campaign, this fight, this battle accurately. But it also includes, new information, these updates that we made. It includes some kind of explosive new information about the Department of Energy's major loan to Lithium, Nevada, which was just finalized earlier this year. That was put forward by the Biden administration and finalized under Trump. This $2.26 billion loan is a major federal government undertaking, and any project like that, any effort like that requires analysis of the impacts that it might have. And so this Department of Energy loan, they relied on the 2021 EIS. So they relied on the EIS that didn't include any information about the tribal significance, the cultural significance, the sacred nature of Thacker Pass. It didn't include any of the information that tribes provided, after January 15th, 2021, when the protest camps began, when the major opposition to the projects began. None of that information was looked at by DOE at all. And of course, this is deliberate. They're using this older document so that they can avoid having to do more consultation, having to slow things down, and so on. They want to avoid the possibility of having more oversight and more resistance. And so despite, several of the local tribes objecting strongly to the Department of Energy's choice to use this analysis, they went ahead and decided to do that. Again, this is not surprising. This is what these agencies do. They're set up to facilitate the process of exploitation of the land while providing sort of a semblance or a projection or an apparition as if there were an effective democratic process, public input process, and a way for people to have a say in whether these projects happen or not. That doesn't actually exist in our society. We don't live in a functioning democracy where we have the right to change how things happen in situations like this. Instead, we live in a society where these agencies are going to do what they're going to do. Corporations have vastly more power than people, and our right to participate and to comment and to get involved is very limited and very truncated, and increasingly so. That's only worsening under the Trump administration right now. And, all this it's not meant to make us paralyzed or cynical or frozen. It is a reflection that more serious forms of action are needed, that we need to destabilize these norms and these oppressive systems that have come to exist and come to define the world, that we can't accept these premises and say, oh, well, that's all that can be done, that we have to fight, we have to push, we have to undermine this. So the second piece that I wanted to share about today in this video is about Palestine. And as people are no doubt aware, the Israeli Zionist occupying entity has cut off all food and supplies into Gaza for, more than a month now. And there is mass starvation taking place now. The official death toll is over 50,000, approaching 60,000, I believe. And unofficially, that death toll does not include anyone whose body has not been able to be found because it was completely destroyed or it's buried under rubble. And so it's estimated that the real death toll is well over 100,000, probably over 150,000. Tens of thousands of those who've been killed by the Zionist forces have been, with U.S. supplied bombs and weaponry, I should add, have been children down to the age of infants. It is a genocide. We are seeing a genocide in real time right now. And, I just did an interview with a friend of mine, Terry Lodge, who's an attorney and who has been working on issues of war and foreign adventurism and imperialism for many decades. And Terry's been working to fight U.S. involvement and support for the Zionist state throughout this conflict. And in methods such as a lawyer, he's been doing things like helping the Veterans for Peace write letters and put pressure on the Department of State, because there are laws on the books in the United States, for example, saying that weapons from this country can't be transferred to foreign countries that are engaged in genocide, that are engaged in systemic human rights violations, that are murdering civilians en masse. There are active laws on the books against that, saying that it is illegal to do that. Of course, again, those laws are not being enforced. They're not being enforced in any way, just like our laws that say that Congress has to authorize war. The president can't unilaterally declare war, just like those laws are being violated regularly, with the U.S. bombing Yemen, bombing the Houthis, who are, to a large extent, the only group outside of Palestine that has taken meaningful armed action against the Zionist state for their genocide, attempting to stop them using all means at their disposal. So, I just wanted to share this because it's such a critical issue that is happening right now that so many people are ignoring or downplaying or not talking about. And a lot of people feel disempowered by the situation, by our powerlessness in the face of these ostensibly democratic governments and what they're doing to... Sorry, I got allergies here, so I'm all sniffly. What they are doing to facilitate this mass murder. And, many of us, I think, are just feeling the weight of what is happening in our hearts, in our souls, looking at these pictures and these videos that are coming out of Gaza, and of course out of the West Bank to a somewhat smaller extent. And, many people are learning now for the first time these deeper histories of how the Zionist, settler colonial project functions, and how this genocide has unfolded over decades now. And, there's one more connection I want to make here that's not often made, which is the connection between mining and genocide. So, and it's a very simple one. The bombs that are raining down on Gaza right now, the artillery shells, the drones, all of these weapons are made using minerals, using metals that are mined, and many of them are mined here in the United States. So many of these bombs that are falling on Gaza right now are made from steel that comes from, Minnesota and the upper Midwest, and that comes from mines up there. Many of these rockets have lithium in them that might come from the Silver Peak lithium mine in Nevada. Many of these explosives have magnesium or aluminum or nickel or other minerals in them that come from public lands in the United States. So there's always a link between resource extraction and war and imperialism and genocide. There's always a link between societies that destroy their land and then use that destruction to build weapons of war so that they can defeat others. And that ranges from the Roman Empire deforesting North Africa to build their navy, cutting down these massive old growth trees to build ships, wooden ships, so that they could dominate the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. And, and today, where, the United States and other nations are, other nations across the world are destroying their ecologies, not in small part to provide raw materials and the economic might that powers their war machines. So there's a link between these things. And, stopping genocide, I think that there's a link there to stopping the destruction of the planet, to stopping ecocide. So, I want to share this because I think that these struggles are linked. And too often they're presented as being completely different, completely separated, and not linked. it's just not true. They are deeply and inextricably linked. Just like the war in Iraq was the invasion, illegal and unjustified invasion of Iraq that led to its own genocide by the United States, was linked to oil. This war, this genocide rather, that's taking place in Gaza right now is linked to the gas supplies off the Gaza coast that Israel and Western corporations badly want access to. The next thing that I want to share about briefly is just a book that I want to plug that I just finished reading. It's a 2014 book. It's not new. And it looks at the anonymous movement, the hacker movement that was very active, between about 2010 and 2014 or so. And, if folks remember, this is a movement where people wore the Guy Fawkes mask, and they hacked all kinds of different things. They hacked Stratfor, they hacked Visa and PayPal when those companies did a probably illegal blockade of WikiLeaks, following the WikiLeaks disclosures of State Department memos and U.S. surveillance of foreign governments and so on. And this movement in many ways was linked to the Edward Snowden disclosures and this sort of era of hacking and disclosure that was so significant in this era of the mid-2010s. And the book is called Hacker, Hoaxer, Whistleblower, Spy by Bella Coleman. And it's an excellent book. I would highly recommend it. I think, it captures the spirit of this sort of insurgent coyote movement that is destabilizing social norms and destabilizing expectations, while at the same time, has this deeply profound, progressive and spirit of undermining power and telling the truth and exposing dictatorships and oppression. And I just found it to be a beautiful book, and the way that the author Coleman concludes the book is quite lovely as well. She just talks about how in this modern era it's so easy to get disillusioned and to become completely cynical and live in this individualistic, separated mindset that says that there's nothing that we can do, that resistance is futile, and that surveillance is all pervasive. And she says, Anonymous proved and proves the falsehood of that. It proves the necessity of taking bold action, of operating at times in this sort of, again, coyote trickster energy to undermine and show the truth of this, and that this is always going to be present when these systems of oppression exist and are attempting to exert themselves on the world. There are a few more things on my list here, but this video is already getting quite long, so I'm probably going to leave it at that for today. Again, I want to start making these videos semi-regularly, and I'd love to engage in some dialogue, answer questions, hear ideas, respond to thoughts that other people have. Maybe one thing that I'll do here is start plugging some writing that other folks are doing elsewhere, because there's a lot of great material out there right now, and I want to make sure that credit is going to people, and that folks are getting exposed to some of the really valuable analysis that we're seeing out there. This is a pretty challenging time. Under the Trump administration right now, we're seeing a huge rise of authoritarianism, the mobilization of the surveillance state to crush opposition and dissidents in a way that hasn't been seen, probably since the post 9/11 period. But even that may have been a warm-up compared to what we're seeing now in some ways. Those technological systems and logistics that were established in that era are being used to a higher and higher extent now. So, it's really easy to get discouraged. It's really easy to feel like nothing will change. And, it's true that from what I understand, despite the fact that the Democratic Party here in the United States has been sort of a harbinger of this right-wing authoritarianism, has facilitated the growth and spread of corporate power and so on. It's also true that the most vibrant and effective social movements have emerged under democratic administrations in recent years and decades. And I think there's a reason for that, because, what we're seeing now under Trump is those who fight back are facing some of the worst possible consequences. So, because of that, I think that our movements need to evolve. We need to get smarter. We need to be careful. We need to practice security culture. We need to build in the quiet, in the shadows. We need to take action deliberately and cautiously. But at the same time, we need to be bold when the situation and the circumstances call for it. We can't live in a mindset of fear. We have to stand up against these authoritarian figures and, be symbols of resistance. And that's what I want to leave with you all. So thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.